Now that they're getting ready here, we can start taking a look at these deck lists. Jacob is playing Hawlucha, Charizard, Pidgeot in here, so they're definitely going to see that Forest Seal Stone in the list. On Jacob's side, 4 Comfey, 3 Sableye. Pretty straightforward SableZard list. But they also, and this is where it gets a little bit cool, is they have 4 copies of Cross Switcher in their list. And yeah, Tyler is playing a pretty straightforward Mew list with the Oricorio in here, the DTE build specifically. And it looks like Jacob is starting it off with the Comfey in the active. And there is the Battle Pass. Turn 1 always feels good to have and start with. Being able to prize check and see what is available to grab. Definitely just going to see some Comfeys hit the bench here. Playing things like ropes, switch carts, cross switchers, and of course the beach court, giving it mobility. So you can get as many cards in the Lost Zone on turn 1 with flower selecting. Potentially could even see things like Pidgeot V and Forest Seal Stone really pushing the envelope to get to that magic 10 cards sooner than later. That way Sableye can just start doing everything it's got to do. And the Battle Pass is going to select a Cramorant and a Comfey, and a Nest Ball is also going to get a 3rd Comfey into play here. Pretty strong turn 1, and we haven't even started to see flower selecting yet. There is the first one. I couldn't quite tell what those were. Thinking that over on their end, seeing what they can potentially decide to use. Sending a rope to the Lost Zone and playing a rope. So maybe it was a double rope choice. We see a flower selecting number 2, sending a Battle Pass out into the Lost Zone. And it looks like just a pass, 2 cards in the Lost Zone. Not the best. Could have seen a 3rd in there, but maybe it comes out of the rest of their hand. And Tyler starts with a Cramomatic, hitting the heads. Definitely going to see a Battle Pass. Easy pick right there. And yeah, Battle VIP Pass on turn 1 in both of these decks is insane. Most decks now are playing multiple copies of Battle VIP Pass. Make sure you have your copies available to use. Most likely going to see a couple of Genesects or Mews hit the bench this turn on Tyler's side. Looks like the first selection is a Genesect V with that Fusion Strike system. Being able to draw as many cards as you have Fusion Strike Pokemon in play. And yeah, 2 Genesect here. And there is the Forest Seal Stone. We might just see that V-Star marker get flipped over. Not just yet. Ultra Ball discarding what appears to be some other cards. Can't quite tell what those discards were there. And Ultra Ball is going to go ahead and get a Mew. Looks like they might just have 1 or 2 cards left in hand now, so they can start drawing additional cards. Yep, Fusion Strike system. I'm going to go ahead and draw 3 here. And they have 4 in hand, and another Battle Pass off of the cards drawn from that Fusion Strike system. Another Mew hits the bench. And considering, you know, that 5th Pokemon, or are they just going to hold out here, potentially try and get that Oricorio? And nope, another Genesect. 3 Genesect, 3 Mew. Pretty solid here. Oricorio is definitely a liability to put down in the Lost Box matchup. More Fusion Strike systems doing its thing, drawing additional cards. DTE hitting one of the benched Mew V, and another Ultra Ball discarding a Battle Pass. grabbing the Mew VMAX for the next turn. Can't evolve this turn. It is the first turn of the game for them here. Pokemon have to be in play for a single turn before evolving them. Even though it is just a VMAX, it is still considered an evolution card. Final Fusion Strike system for just a couple more here. Has a handful of 6. Double checking their discard pile, seeing what their options are. Could just potentially start passing it over to Jacob here. We see a Cram-O-Matic discarding something there, hitting the heads once again. The luck on these Cram-O-Matics this turn for Tyler has been really high. And there is the path to the peak. And finally playing a judge, first supporter of the game here. Both players going to go down to 4 cards in hand. Judge path usually feels pretty good. In this situation though, we don't have anything crazy on Jacob's side that path is going to shut down. They could potentially attempt to find a Radiant Greninja. And that will be, in fact, turned off from the path to the peak since it is a rule box Pokemon. And we see a choice belt being attached to the benched Mew, and then they just pass it over to Jacob. And Color's Experiment starting the turn off, looking at the top 5 cards of the deck, adding 3 of them to their hand and putting 2 into the Lost Zone. So their Lost Zone total will be 4 cards. They're trying to chase down that magic number 10. So they can use Sableye to the fullest of its ability here. And a escape rope and a cross switcher go to the Lost Zone. And here is the first flower selecting of the turn. Going to put them to a total of 5. And there goes an Echoing Horn. We do see a switch into the Cramorant, and it looks like we might just see a Spit innocently for the 110 damage onto that Mew V. And in this situation, if Tyler has everything they need, they could potentially just Psychic Leap that Mew away, wipe the damage off the board. That's definitely the strategy into this matchup. The Forest Sealstone is being used here. Most likely going to grab a Lost Vacuum to path out the game here. They can be able to get rid of the path of the peak with the Lost Zone. Vacuum, that powerful tool. And I don't mean tool as in a tool card. It's an item. We do see the retreat into the Mew with the double turbo. There is the VMAX as well. We see an attack declared. I'm just going to assume it is a Techno Blast onto that Cramorant. Not much else you could do to get the KO here. Nest Ball from Jacob grabbing the Drapion V. Path to the peak is in play, so they are going to have to get rid of that path. They might have access to a Lost Vacuum or a Beach Court this turn. Lost Vacuum is definitely going to be a little bit more important here. Getting in yet another card or 2 into the Lost Zone. And they're going to have access to Flower Selecting as well. Digging 2 cards deeper. 1 into the Lost Zone. Psychic Energy it is. And we might see something here. Got quite the large hand after all of these Flower Selectings. And there is the Beach Court to bump the path peak. All these abilities are now once again turned on, so Drapion V will be able to come in here and use Dynamic Hail to take a 3 prize KO onto that Mew VMAX. Each court gives the Comfy free retreat. At this point, we see an energy attached to the SableZard. And Jacob just has to decide where to put the 6 damage counters from Drapion's attack. But they're going to put them onto the Comfy onto the bench, taking 3 prize cards. Tyler can't deal with this Drapion this turn. Oh, and they've got the Lost City. There's a power tablet as well. And a nest ball, thinning the hand down. Lost City is going to get rid of that Drapion V. Jacob only does play 1 in this list, so it is going to go to the Lost Zone after it is KO'd this turn, potentially here, if Tyler can find all the right pieces needed. First Fusion Strike System going to draw a handful of cards, filling that hand back up to 6. At this point, they are still looking for a VMAX. They do have the double turbo energy on to the benched B. So, yep, there we go. And we see a Judge. Gonna disrupt both hands down to 4 cards after a quick shuffle on both sides. And there is the VMAX found from the Judge, and another VMAX. So 2 VMAXs from those 4 cards, and yet they still have access to 2 more Fusion Strike Systems. They're going to be able to draw up again, double checking their options here. We see a Pal Pad, potentially putting back Judge. 2 copies of Judge going back into the deck for Tyler here. Really strong turn. Jacob definitely has to get a lot to be able to start abusing that SableZard in the right way. Places 12 damage counters when there's 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. A 10 isn't quite enough to take any KO, so they're going to have to set everything up to potentially take multiple prizes over a few turns here. We see another Cramomatic with a heads yet again. That's 3 for 3 from Tyler this game. The absolute luck of that die. Tyler should definitely play the lottery tonight after they leave the league challenge. Laying it all down on the line. A selection has been made, and of course, Cramomatic, it's not a public card. You don't have to reveal what you grab. Sometimes you see it because they play it out of the gate, but then there is the retreat, getting that damaged Mew out of here. And yeah, we're gonna see a Techno Blast as well, copied from Mew VMAX's Cross Fusion Strike attack. And that Drapion does go to the Lost Zone. Can't quite tell how many cards are in the Lost Zone there, but now this Colress is definitely going to be able to put it into contention. They find a few other choices here. It looks like Escape Rope, Vacuum, Pokegear. A lot of choices to be made. Tyler still has access to things like Psychic Leap as well, with that unevolved Mew V on the bench. You could definitely see them play some counters, and then maybe they pivot into the damaged Mew. They find the energy, they go for the leap. The leap gets a KO on the damaged Comfy. So there's a lot of potential plays and opportunities that Tyler has. They still need to take 3 prize cards in this situation here. So there's going to be a lot to work for Jacob. They're both tied up at 3 prizes each. And there goes a Lost Vacuum from that Flower selecting into the Lost Zone. They definitely have to be close to, if not at, the desired 10 cards by now. And an Escape Rope. We see the basic Mew V into play. And here comes the SableZard. And we're going to start seeing Lost Mine this turn, placing counters down on to Tyler's side of the board. And all of the damage is getting placed, all 12 on to that Genesect V on the bench, and yet another Cram-O-Matic, and finally a Tails for Tyler. Not quite hitting that fourth one. That would have been absolutely insane if they were able to hit 4 out of 4. There is the double turbo onto the damaged Mew, so they will be able to potentially Psychic Leap if they can find a modifier here. The Choice Belt doesn't quite do it. You do have to have the Power Tablet in this situation to be able to get there. Fusion Strike System going to draw a few more cards here for Tyler. And yet another Judge from Tyler, disrupting both hands, down to 4 cards yet again. Lost Box definitely thrives on having a large hand full of options, and Judge just restricting that does not feel the best to have that happen when you're playing it. And of course, they do have options just to be able to draw back up thanks to the Fusion Strike systems. Yet again, there is another one, and they have the Power Tablet as well, so we will potentially see the Psychic Leap this turn, getting the Mew off the board. However, that Genesect is definitely not looking like it's gonna survive here. It just needs 7 more counters placed onto it via Sableye to get that KO taken care of. And yeah, we are gonna see the Leap, shuffling that Mew VMAX and all cards attached into the deck. And Tyler does just promote the other unharmed Mew VMAX. Jacob starts with the Comfy in the active spot. Flower selecting, looking at the top 2 here. Trying to find a way to potentially Psychic Energy or a Clara or a switch card. Getting rid of the Forest Sealstone. Definitely don't need it at this point. And there is the switch card, healing that 30 damage from the Drapion from earlier in the game. And yet another Flower selecting, digging even deeper in the deck, getting rid of the Hawlucha. They have access to yet another switch and a Psychic Energy. And here is a Colress, another 5 cards. See what they can find here. Looks like a Beach Court and a Fog Crystal I saw, and a Pokegear in that. The Beach Court and the Fog Crystal will be able to get that Comfy out of the active. Oh, but they get rid of the Fog Crystal. They must already have the Psychic Energy, or they're potentially digging to find Clara on the following turns. They're gonna have to take some prize cards this turn and establish that Genesect to get KO'd. And there is the Fog Crystal. They must have already had one in hand. Confirms the removal selection. Grabbing the Psychic Energy from the deck, attaching it to the Sableye, and it looks like we're going to see some sort of potential pivot here as well. Got to double check Tyler's discard pile. And the Beach Court gets rid of the Path to the Peak. And we see the retreat into the Sableye, and we're probably going to see that Lost Mine putting 7 onto the Genesect, which secures them 2 more prize cards. We still have yet to see the Radiant Charizard here, which could be the closer for this game. And yet 5 additional counters being placed on the other Genesect. Without the Hawlucha and some extra pings, I'm not quite sure Jacob's path of victory other than potentially the Radiant Charizard. We see a Vacuum, getting rid of a Boss's Orders, getting rid of the Beach Court to prevent them from pivoting as much. We see yet another power tablet, and we might even see yet another psychic leap from this different Mew VMAX this turn. There's the switch into the Mew. Fusion Strike system just drawing a singular card here. Tyler's definitely digging to find anything they can. Double turbo onto the active. Fusion Strike system for one more from that final Genesect. We are in the final turns of this game. We're going to see a prize taken from Tyler this turn. And if Jacob can't finish off and get that last prize card they need, Tyler might just be able to seize the victory here. And there is the manual retreat back into the Mew VMAX, and we're going to see another path to the peak, which will shut off the Radiant Charizard. Jacob has to have an out to that path to the peak, and we see yet another KO, both down to one prize card remaining. Can Jacob do it? We're going to see some flower selecting potentially here. They're going to have a way to get rid of the path. They only play 2 copies of Beach Court, and I do believe one is in the Lost Zone and one is in the discard pile. So there's just no way to get those back. It looks like they're deliberating between a Choice Spell, and I can't quite tell what that other card is. We do see some cross switchers. They do have the Radiant Charizard, but with that path to the peak in play, Charizard's ability, which reduces the amount of energy needed for its attack based on how many prize cards your opponent has taken, will not be in play. PGV goes to the Lost Zone. Definitely don't need it at this point because you've already also gotten rid of your Forest Sealstone. Here is the switch card, getting rid of that last 30 damage, and yet another flower selecting, looking at 2 more cards. Sending the Fire Energy out into the Lost Zone. They do play 2 copies here, so they might still have access to another one. Is there not a way where they can get there this turn? We see the Pokegear looking at the top 7 cards. Looks like Kalara is an option, as well as Chorus. How many cards are left in deck? Is that just a singular card though? I mean, if you put these back in, Chorus will still potentially be able to be played this turn. They do decide to take the Chorus's Experiment. Double checking how many cards left in the deck. They have the Fire Energy, they have the Charizard, there is the Chorus. 5 off the top. Manaphy and Battle Pass into the Lost Zone. Double cross switcher on to the Genesect. Another Comfey coming up. Flower selecting yet again. Looking for something here. I don't know if they can potentially do it anymore. Are they going to attempt to go for the deck out play? Double checking the Lost Zone. Double checking the discard pile. Their options are getting thin. They're trying to count how many copies of the Vacuum are left. They only play 2 in the deck. One's in the Lost Zone, one's in the bin, and 2 stadiums are gone. So I don't know if this can end up in a win for Jacob. It might just come down to Tyler taking the dub here. Sableye hits the bench. They're gonna have to potentially just hope that they are stuck underneath the path. Another switch cart. Here comes the Sableye. Lost Mine. Probably placing all 12 damage counters onto that benched Genesect, putting it up to just 170. And they show the rope. Tyler takes the dub over Jacob in the final potential turns here of round 3 at the first league challenge back in 3 years here in the Zone Gaming in Ashtabula, Ohio. What an exciting game of Pokemon that was, down to the very end for both players.